The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
A babysitting lover turned a prosecution witness. She takes the stand in her former boss's Virginia murder trial. And in New Mexico, a famed actor, director in custody now on child sex abuse charges just days before he was set to star on Law & Order Special Victims Unit. Plus, Sean Diddy Combs sells off a major asset while behind bars in New York. The court of law is done for the day. Let's convene Court of Opinion. Welcome to Court of Opinion. I'm Jenaé, your moderator for this hour. Thank you for being with us and following along. We are beginning in Virginia for the trial of a father facing life in prison, charged with killing his wife and another man with the help of his family's au pair. Brendan Banfield denies orchestrating an elaborate catfishing scheme in order to kill his wife, Christine. But the biggest witness against him yet took the stand today, the au pair, Juliana Magalhães. Prosecutors say Brendan and Juliana conspired together to lure a random man named Joseph Ryan from a fetish website to have a violent sexual encounter with Christine. The prosecution says it was a staged attempt to make it look like Ryan had stabbed Christine and that they had to shoot Ryan in self-defense. There's a lot of pieces to this case. In case you missed it today, here are the highlights of the Commonwealth of Virginia versus Brendan Banfield.
So you began a sexual relationship with the defendant in August of 2022. When you were how old?
I was 21.
Did he ever talk about his relationship with his wife, Christine Banfield?
Sometimes it would come up in our conversation and he would talk about it.
Did he ever talk about getting a divorce with her?
No, he basically said divorce was not an option.
So he didn't want to get divorced. Did he tell you what he wanted to do?
Yes.
What did he say?
He mentioned his plan to get rid of her. He said he wasn't going to hire anybody because that is something that throughout the investigation can be discovered easily. And that he had heard of a website called Fat Life. The website is for BDSM, people that like that kind of stuff, and he said we would be able to find somebody that plays like aggressive.
Was Christine home or not home when the two of you used Fat Life?
She was home.
Always?
Yes.
Why?
Because he always mentioned for us to make sure to log in on the account when she was also home. So it would have, throughout the investigation, it would have been very clear that like whenever she was using the profile, she was home, and yeah.
What did he know about an investigation? There hadn't been one yet.
He knew eventually we would have one investigation.
What specifically did he tell you about that?
Well, he knew that we needed to have some alibis.
What did you see when you went inside the bedroom?
When we first get into the bedroom, I could see that the bed we have in the master bedroom, it was kind of tall. And so from my point of view, all we could see was like Joe. At the moment I knew it was Joe, like on top of Christine, in a way I would only describe holding her down. Brendan said he yelled, police officer, and Christine's first reaction, that was the first time I heard she say anything at that point. Then she yelled back at Brendan saying, Brendan, he has a knife. And Yeah, that's when Brendan first shot Joe. Joe was laying there and for me to grab a towel.
What did you see Brendan do next?
When I was bringing him the towel, he got on top of her, and that's when I first saw him stab her with a knife.
You know, this co-defendant doesn't have a lot of inflection in her voice when she is sharing these details, but wow, what a story she is telling these jurors. We've got a fantastic panel for you. Let's get their opinions on this case. Joining me in studio, we have criminal defense attorney and Emory University law professor Molly Palmer and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor David Schnipper with us as well. Welcome to Court of Opinion. And Molly, I'm going to start with you. Your opinion on this co-defendant on the stand. I mean, this is likely the biggest witness for the prosecution.
Absolutely. The hugest witness for the state is Magalhães, and we have some issues with her, I think, for a number of reasons, right? Likability always matters in trial. Jurors, I don't think, like adultery with the au pair, and right, that cuts both ways, both for the defendant and for the witness. But I think the biggest issue here, separate from maybe the flat affect that you referenced, is that she's a snitch. Let's not forget that the cross-examination is going to focus on the fact that this woman only came forward with this story to benefit herself and will, in fact, be benefited in some way. She'll be sentenced after the conclusion of this trial. And so I think her credibility is one of the biggest hurdles for the state.
And David, she got a good deal. I mean, would you classify it as a good deal? Manslaughter charge instead of murder. She admits to shooting one of the victims, and it's essentially going to be time served after she's done testifying.
Well, one of my mentors always would say the first one to jump back in the boat gets dry. What do I mean by that? Exactly. I'm sure that part of her negotiation was that she had to testify truthfully. She got the manslaughter. I looked it up today. Manslaughter on that state, I think it's a cap that's 10 years. You know, at the end of the day, 10 years is not life in prison. So, yeah, she's testifying, and that's going to be part of her deal and part of her alleged favorable sentence. And so, of course, and that's going to be a part of the defense is like, well, what are you getting? Like, is she believable? Of course, she's only doing this because she's getting something. How could she be truthful? So it kind of goes both ways, but it is very damning testimony. In a way, like, why would she lie? So, I mean,
we're all waiting for that cross-examination tomorrow.
Yes.
It's going to start. So her testimony ended in the middle of direct, but they're of course going to bring up that deal, Molly. They're also, I don't know what they're going to say about their client in this relationship. They've already admitted to the affair, but he's there at the desk just writing away. He's barely looking at her while she's testifying.
I know. It's very interesting to watch him, and you have to, as the defense attorney, prepare your client who is sitting next to you at defense counsel table for that level of scrutiny. And I think what we're going to see, I mean, we'll see if he testifies, right? I mean, that's going to be fascinating if he does. But the same level of scrutiny that this witness is faced with, the jury is simultaneously looking at him. And I think you have to prepare your client perfectly for that level of just, you know, the jury zoning in and really kind of nitpicking, like, how is he holding his pen? What is he reacting to? And perhaps, you know, comparing that to whatever he ends up saying, should he take the stand later on in the trial.
We are all on pins and needles as to whether that's going to happen. Let's bring in our remote guest who is joining us. We have former prosecutor Amelia Ravello. Amelia, what's your opinion of the Brazilian au pair on the stand?
Hi, and thank you so much for having me. You know, I'm not going to be shocked if we end up seeing a defense verdict here, either by way of him being acquitted or by him only being convicted of a lesser included. I think obviously this woman, you know, has every reason to lie, and the defense is really going to bring that out. And the cross-examination is going to be very interesting, and we're going to see if the jury is persuaded by that. It's also going to be interesting to see what happens later on with the expert witness testimony. In his opening statement, he mentioned how the Commonwealth's expert and the defense expert actually concur and agree that no one else had access to the wife's devices when she was talking to this other individual. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not the jury is persuaded by the defense's theory. I do think that we have some reasonable doubt here.
Okay, let's take a listen to something that this co-defendant said on the stand in regards to her relationship. Because the big question is, are they going to see her as a victim or someone who was seriously involved in this plot?
At some point, while you were working for the Banfield family, did your relationship with the defendant change?
Yes.
How did it change?
It became sexual, physical relationship.
Did you keep the relationship, this new relationship with the defendant, did you keep this a secret?
For my part, some of my friends, they knew because I told them, and I used to post on my Instagram. But for his part, yeah, it was a secret.
David, you see her wiping away tears when she's talking about that. How do you think the jury is going to view her, even though she's admitting to being very involved in this plot? Are they going to see that there's a power inequity there with her boss, someone who's in the home, she's supposed to be caring for their child, and things suddenly turn?
Well, I think it could go both ways. You could have some jurors that totally believe what she's saying and that think that that she was taken advantage of or manipulated, or that she was just a pawn, and you're going to have some jurors that may see the other way, that she was heavily involved. And we're going to have to wait and see how it plays out. I mean, jurors, fair amount of jurors are quirky. You never know. You never know what you're going to get. It seems like that she was involved, but how much was she involved? And I want to go back where, like, he's sitting there writing, and you can't, it's almost like that he's like, is he right-handed? Is he left-handed? Because he's writing like very weirdly, and he just keep writing. It's almost like an act or something. And that's
intense.
That's what's getting my attention. Like, what is he doing?
It's hard to look away from that. Amelia, tell me if you noticed that, and if he takes the stand, is it necessary for us to hear, or jurors to hear, both sides of this, or do you think his attorney can handle that in closing arguments?
You know, I think when you're bringing up a self-defense theory, the jury they're dying to hear from the defendant. They're always dying to hear from the defendant, but especially when you're arguing self-defense, that really does need to come from the accused, right? Obviously, he's entitled to the presumption of innocence, but if we're going with his theory here that this really was a home invasion gone wrong, he's going to have to explain to the jurors how he was in imminent fear of harm, and that's why he did what he did. So I don't really see how they're going to get away with not putting him on the stand in a case like this. And to everyone's point, yes, jurors notice absolutely everything. I've had trials where jurors will come up to me afterwards and they'll say, "Oh, I love that suit you wore on the third day," or, you know, "I've noticed your notes are so meticulous," or "your notepads are so meticulous." They notice every little thing. And apparently when they played the 911 audio and he said that he shot him, he looked up startled. So he's definitely doing some interesting things during the trial, and I think that his attorneys might need to have a little chat with him about the optics in front of the jury, because that's always the most important thing, or one of the most important things in a trial.
Optics are big. Molly, before we get to break, I want to talk about something that just shocks me, the level of planning in this alleged plot. And Christine, this wife, that she would have been attacked by someone she didn't know who had been lured there, and then her husband turns around, seemingly saving her, only to then stab her to death if the prosecution's theory is true.
Right. I mean, these facts are completely harrowing, and I think we have everything that you just laid out on top of, you know, it's couched as like a violent sexual fantasy. I mean, how do you stand in front of a jury and try to get some empathy for your client and try to explain away this plot that really hinges on not just harrowing and heinous violent, but like sexually violent facts? It's a difficult case in front of a jury.
So much for this jury to sift through. Thank you to our panel for giving their opinions on it. We have to get to a break. When we come back, we're going to switch gears to the best evidence. In Ohio, there's a case going on for a man who shot who he thought was a scammer demanding money, or so he says. The shocking footage that jurors saw coming up next.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Was it self-defense or murder because of a scam? That's the answer that Ohio jurors are going to be faced with. Day 2 of testimony happening in Ohio for the Killing the Messenger murder trial. The defendant is William Brock. He's 83 years old, and what he did is captured on dash cam video. He confronted an Uber driver, Lolitha Hall, at gunpoint and then shot her 4 times. But investigators say he feared for his life. The investigation found that Hall was sent to Brock's home by scammers. They were demanding money. Hall, though, wasn't aware of the scam. She was an Uber package delivery driver who had been contacted through the app. Now, during opening statements, the defense says that William Brock was reasonably convinced he was about to be hurt if he didn't comply with the demands. But the prosecution that is bringing these charges against him say the shooting is inexcusable because he wasn't dealing with an immediate threat. So let's look at today's best evidence. This is what our court of opinion team chose as number 1 today, the dash cam footage of William Brock shooting Lolitha Hall. That was shown to jurors today. Brock is heard telling Hall to give him her phone. Hall then pleads with him to stop, and then you hear those gunshots. This is disturbing. We do want to show you, though, because it is very important testimony and evidence in front of the jury.
Stop. Stop. Well, I'll call 911. Stop. No, you're not leaving. Right. No, you're not. You're not leaving in one hole. Stop. Give me that phone. Stop. Give me it. Stop. Give me it. Help! 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 Give me that phone. Help! I'll shoot the other way. Help! Help! Come on, get out! Help! Sir! Yeah. I'm here to pick up a package. Yes, I know what you're after. You're after the... Help! Help! I'll shoot you in the head. Don't do that, please. Don't, sir. Please don't. Who do you work for? Over. It's right up there. You can see it. You can see it. You can look, sir. Please. Just look. Well, hold the property. Right here.
Heartbreaking evidence in front of this jury, but we want to know, where does it stand when it comes to criminal liability for the defendant that's sitting inside of the courtroom? Let's bring back in our guest panel. We have with us Molly Palmer, David Schipper, and Amelia Ravello. Molly, let me start with you. That evidence, it is so hard to watch, but it outlines what the prosecution needs to prove in this case. I mean, if they didn't have this video, we might be looking at a very different prosecution.
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, it's really hard to watch. But I wonder about what the jurors are thinking in terms of what is in the defendant's mind. And that's what they're tasked with analyzing, right? And so they must be thinking, well, he believes that he's, being scammed out of this money. He owes this money. He's going to be killed if he doesn't pay it. They're probably also thinking, well, where are these scammers? We know that Ms. Hall is not the one who devised the scheme. So there is kind of a little bit of mystery around what the defendant was thinking, and that is the question before the jury, in addition to this really difficult evidence to watch. And there is that unanswered question. Where are the people behind the scam?
The empty seats. And a lot of people have encountered scammers. David, they've dealt with someone who's called them, has demanded money, and we don't know what these jurors have experienced, but they may be thinking about that through this, the fear that you can sometimes get thinking that it might be true.
I mean, this whole thing is just bizarre. I mean, first of all, it's like a broad daylight. It's almost like he's in the front of his driveway. I mean, is there any other witnesses that saw this? So you would think that other people saw this. It's 83. You probably could tell there's something not right with him, maybe. But was there any psychological testing? Was there any expert witnesses that, evaluated him? Because what I understand was the scammers allegedly said that his nephew was in jail and he needed to come up with $12,000, but that doesn't make sense because he could have just called the jail and found out, or held her at gunpoint and called the cops.
Called 911.
Public policy does not want vigilantism, right? You can't take the law into your own hands. And my colleague virtually was talking about imminent fear imminent harm. Well, any reasonable person is going to see that he was not in imminent harm. So the whole scamming thing to me is almost, it's relevant but not relevant. I mean, this poor Uber driver, you know, it's sad, and I wonder, Uber should be liable for this. I'm talking about a civil matter, that's a whole other story, but I can't see that what he did was so egregiously, disgustingly wrong that I'd be shocked if he's not convicted. But I don't think that he's all up there. There's something going on up there with him, his age, et cetera. And I assume that they're going to have expert witnesses that have evaluated him, and we'll see how it plays out.
We're going to see how it plays out. In answer to your question about Uber, the only thing publicly they've said about this is that they are giving everything they have to investigators, making sure that they are cooperating with this investigation. And there's actually a jury view that happened today. So these jurors got to go to that property, see everything in terms of the layout. And we understand this is them leaving for the day from the courthouse, but the actual area where they went, it's pretty rural. There's a lot of space around his house, so it could be why no neighbors immediately knew what was happening. Let's play, though, our second piece of evidence. We'll get to Amelia to get her take on this. This is the body camera footage of William Brock. So this is after everything has happened. He eventually does call 911, and he tells officers that there was a man on the phone who told him he needs bail money for his nephew. Let's listen to his reaction with police.
I'm sure glad to see you guys out here because I've been on this phone for a couple hours with this guy trying to say that he had a nephew in jail and had a wreck in Charleston and just kept hanging on and needing bond money. And
are you injured anywhere?
just a little nick on the side there where she slammed the car door on me.
We didn't go inside your home.
Well, there's $12,000 in an envelope in there that I was supposed to take to Springfield.
Amelia, let's bring you in. This kind of evidence in front of a jury is huge. It's got his reaction to everything. He seems very calm, despite the fact he's been through this altercation and he shot a woman to death.
Yes, and this evidence is so hard to hear, and I can only imagine how hard it is for the jury to hear this evidence. But I will say I do think that this body cam footage helps the defense for sure, because it shows his mental state, right? It's all about whether or not his actions were reasonable, and if he truly felt like he was justified in using force at the moment to stop, an imminent harm. And even after he's in cuffs, it seems, he's saying, or detained rather by the police, he's saying, "I'm glad to see you guys here," meaning that he really was scared and he thought that he was doing the right thing. So I think that this definitely benefits the defense case, and it shows that his mental state, even after the incident took place, was still that he was justified in using force.
Molly, there's a moment in the first piece of evidence we showed during the actual shooting where he's telling Lolita, "You're not leaving." Mm-hmm. She's trying to leave. He's saying, "No, you're not leaving or I'll shoot you in the other leg." Is that where prosecutors need to focus on?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of times jurors are going to put themselves in the position of the defendant, and they're going to think, in this case, this woman is walking away. Do I have an imminent threat? Am I in such fear and apprehension of danger as somebody's walking away that it's reasonable for me to shoot to kill? Or is this a situation where I should let the woman just walk away? And jurors, again, are going to think, if I was in this situation, what would I do? And I think it's fair to say that for the most part, people would let the person walk away.
I want to quickly get to our third piece of evidence because one person who did walk away from the scene but with injuries was William Brock. And here he is. The body camera footage was shown to the jury of police arriving while he's in the hospital. And he told officers about those scammers. They found $12,000 in an envelope in his house. Take a look.
Got real nasty threats and stuff. Yeah. For long enough for her to drive it out. And I said, "Where's she at?" He said, "Well, she's at your house now to get the money. And if you don't give the money, she's going to kill you."
Do you hear him say that his impression was that he was going to be killed?
Okay, Okay, David, you talked about thinking he may have some cognitive decline. What do you think about hearing him talk there in the hospital?
Well, I think my colleague said about his mental state, and again, going back what I said, I'm sure he's going to be evaluated. I'm sure there's going to have experts come and discuss, and explain to the jury that he really felt that he was in imminent fear. But at the end of the day, excuse me, is that reasonable? And just because he felt that way doesn't necessarily mean that it was.
Amelia, let me quickly get your take on this one, because is it almost dangerous? We know we don't have an insanity plea here or an insanity argument from the defense, but would that negate their self-defense claim? Do they want to say that maybe he didn't know what he was doing, or do they want to stick with, no, he felt like he was truly in fear of his life?
Excuse me for my call. Go ahead.
I'll be feeling better.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it definitely does. It's not mutually exclusive, right? He could have been justified in his mental state in doing that and felt like he was in reasonable fear of harm. And the jury could also gain sympathy for him by hearing about his cognitive abilities, right? If he's obviously an 83-year-old man, I mean, I'm sure everyone has grandparents or older folks in their life, and they know that as you get older, your abilities decline. So I think that they should play into that and let the jury know that, his mental abilities are declining. But he was still reasonable in the actions that he took at the time.
Everyone, thank you for your opinions. We're going to get to a break. We're going to get David some water. And when we come back, we're going beyond the gavel. We're going to break down the biggest true crime cases. And this one has to do with an officer who's charged in connection with a shooting that occurred at her home over the summer. But she was the one who was ultimately shot. We have the details, including what's happening next in that case.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Kelsey Fitzsimmons, once a dedicated police officer in the Boston area, is now accused of breaking the law in an alleged assault against a fellow cop.
All the Commonwealth has to do is ask the officers. There's 4 officers that were at the scene.
Officers were at the home of Fitzsimmons in June. They were serving her with a restraining order that included removing her baby after a fiancé claimed she assaulted him and feared for his and their baby's safety. According to the prosecutors, while Fitzsimmons was gathering some of her son's things, Officer Noonan observed the defendant face him, lunge behind the door, and reappear, pointing a firearm directly at him. The defendant pulled the trigger and he heard a click, but no round fired. The officer at the scene then shot Fitzsimmons in the chest. Fitzsimmons was subsequently charged with assault with a dangerous weapon. Fitzsimmons claims she wasn't trying to hurt anyone but herself. She says she had been suffering from postpartum depression and in a statement said this: "My firearm was never pointed in any direction other than my temple. When I pulled the trigger, my gun did not fire. However, I immediately got shot in the chest." Meanwhile, Fitzsimmons is in custody, locked up while she awaits her trial. Her bond was revoked after allegedly failing to comply with alcohol testing. She says the injury to her chest made it too difficult to use a breathalyzer.
Welcome back. We are taking you beyond the gavel, a peek behind the courtroom scenes to see how the judicial process plays out. And in Massachusetts, Kelsey Fitzsimmons was back in court today, where a date has been set for the custody battle assault trial. March 23rd, 2026 is when we expect this to go in front of a jury. She's out on bail now. Last month, a judge ruled that Fitzsimmons could be released pending trial after her attorney told the court she was now able to comply with alcohol testing. Now, before that, she was held in jail without bond for more than 100 days. A lot of issues being talked about on a case like this one. So let's talk about it with our power panel, bringing back in Molly Palmer, David Schnipper, and Amelia Rivello. Amelia, I want to start with you on this one. Tell me what's your initial opinion of this one, starting with the shooting. I mean, she's being served with documents, and they want to take her child. And her reaction is, she says, to hold the gun to her own head, but they say she was firing in a way that was threatening to the officers, and she was shot in the chest.
Yes, I mean, obviously her mental state is going to be extremely important in this case as well. Apparently she has been suffering from postpartum depression. So definitely they're going to put on some kind of medical expert to testify as to that and how it could have given her PTSD and would have prompted her to act like that in a stressful situation. I also think that it's it's a unique situation where they basically denied her bond because she wasn't able to comply with alcohol testing. I mean, that just seems like a very unreasonable situation. She was literally shot in the chest because of this. And if there's ever a reason to deviate from standard bond, I mean, I would think it would be that. She wasn't able to use the breathalyzer to blow into the breathalyzer because of her deflated lung. So I'm not too sure why there wasn't an alternative solution here. She could have done mandatory drug testing once a week through blood. I think it was a little bit unreasonable of the prosecution and also for the court.
Oh, yeah, we're going to talk more about that bond and those conditions in just a moment. Molly, I want to go back to the actual shooting of this officer in a situation where there were multiple officers. Is there a conversation to be had about training for officers in a situation like this? Were there factors that maybe more could have been taken into consideration?
I think there's always a conversation to be had when it comes to things like de-escalation and somebody who's potentially holding a gun to their own head, suffering from postpartum depression. I mean, unfortunately, this has become more and more common when it comes to police interactions. And yes, it's incredibly difficult to be a law enforcement officer. She was one herself. But the reality is there has to be some sort of recognition that somebody is in extreme psychological distress on a level that can avoid a tragedy like this happening. And it's always difficult to see and to hear a scenario wherein perhaps a little more training could have made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, agreed. David, what do you think about the shooting itself and whether or not anyone else should be looked at when it comes to this? I mean, because, of course, they're saying that she was the one who's at fault.
I mean, this is just bizarre. I mean, first of all, she needs a lot of help. All right, she needs a lot of help. She's very disturbed, postpartum, whatever psychologicalness is going on. And let's say that she does get the help. She should probably never be a law enforcement officer again. But I look at it differently. I look at it that, like, if she was to have a gun to her head, who knows if you have a gun here, who knows if you can't do that? I mean, the officer in a way shot her in a way that it wasn't crazy, detrimental, compromising injuries for like ever. So it could have been a lot worse. Maybe that officer shot her in a way that she's going to survive it and be okay, because who knows what she could have done. Because from what I read, she's saying that she was trying to commit suicide. What are you trying to commit suicide for? So, I mean, there's so many moving parts to this. And the fact is that, you know, she's now trying to get her child back. The state isn't allowing that. I mean, she needs a lot of help. I think that's probably what we all can agree on.
Yeah, Amelia's shaking her head. Along with that, Amelia, what's your take on the custody part of this? Because that's already going to be difficult. Her fiance is a first responder. He's the one who successfully got a restraining order saying that she was violent. Are we going to see him come in and testify at this assault trial?
Oh, I'm sure he's going to come in and testify, obviously. And I think that any court would be persuaded to essentially get rid of or revoke her custody completely after something like this. I mean, having a criminal allegation to this magnitude is a very serious offense, and I do not see the court allowing her to have custody after this. Maybe not forever, but in the interim, definitely it's going to affect her custody case. The court is probably going to, if the court does allow her to have visitation with her child, it's definitely going to be some kind of supervised visits, maybe even at the police station or at a neutral place where she can be supervised.
Molly, last 30 seconds. She's out on bond now.
Yeah, finally. I mean, it's always frustrating to see like really onerous bond conditions that, you know, maybe your client can't afford, that they just can't comply with given their circumstances. But this might be the worst of the worst. You know, like Amelia was saying, it's like she has a collapsed lung and therefore can't breathe into the breathalyzer. Maybe don't make that a bond condition. How about that?
We will see what happens in that case. Again, that trial starts March 23rd of this year. We will cover it here on Court TV. We've got to get to a break, but coming up, cold facts and hot takes. Our panel is going to give us their opinions on today's biggest cases, and there were a lot of headlines, a lot of things happening in the news. There's an actor who turns himself in, a high-profile murder defendant discussing life after acquittal, and a disgraced music mogul sells off some assets. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Court TV podcast.
Welcome back to Hot Takes, Cold Facts. This is where we get the fiery opinions of our power panel on some of the biggest headlines of the day. So before we get to their hot takes, let's get to the cold hard facts on our first headline. Out in New Mexico, actor Timothy Busfield turned himself into authorities today to face child sex abuse charges in New Mexico. Now, these charges, they stem from allegations that Busfield inappropriately touched a young boy on a TV show set. And TMZ obtained a video of Busfield at his lawyer's office in Albuquerque shortly before he turned himself in. Here he is making it clear what his position is.
I'm going to confront these lies. They're horrible. They're all lies. And I did not do anything to those little boys. And I'm going to fight it. I'm going to fight it with a great team. And I'm going to be exonerated. I know I am, because this is all so wrong and all lies.
Let's bring back in our power panel. We have Amelia Ravello, David Schnipper, and Molly Palmer with us. And in this segment, we give you 25 seconds on the clock so we can get to everyone and to all of our stories. Molly, let me start with you. Your take on Timothy Busfield now in custody.
Okay, so Timothy Busfield was supposed to be on this episode of Law & Order SVU, and now he's not. The episode has been pulled from the air, and I just want the record to reflect that he was not playing a criminal on that episode. He was playing what? A judge. And so I want everyone to recognize that whatever stereotype you have of what a criminal looks like isn't always accurate, and even the judge-looking person can be the criminal. Allegedly.
Thursday is when that was going to air. I watch Law & Order every episode. David Schnipper, your take on this one.
1984, Revenge of the Nerds, Poindexter. What a great movie. Land of Fraternity, Field of Dreams. If you build it, he will come. He was in that movie too. Have your lawyer speak for you, Timothy. You don't need to speak. You have your lawyer. Have your team speak with you. He does not need to come out and speak. Have your lawyer speak for you, Timothy.
The words of David Schnipper. Let's move to Amelia. New Mexico now, we see they're not afraid to charge actors and big names. Alec Baldwin was on trial there. Your take on the case against Timothy Busfield?
I agree. He should definitely let his lawyers do the talking. I understand that he wants to get ahead of this and he thinks that he's doing the right thing by making a public statement, but he is not doing the right thing. He should let his lawyers handle this. I also understand why they pulled the show from air. They obviously don't want anything to do with these sort of allegations. Apparently these allegations are that he did this on set. So obviously they don't want anything to do with this sort of allegation.
We will continue to follow what happens now that he is in custody. Let's move to our second story. Karen Reed, one of the biggest defendants here at Court TV, offers new insight into her post-acquittal life in a new podcast. This is a two-part interview with the Rotten Mango podcast, and in it, Reed compared the end of the trial to Christmas morning and also revealed that she has plans to write a book about, quote, government control and the one-party system in Massachusetts. Let's listen to some of that video of the interview posted to Rotten Mango's podcast YouTube.
It becomes almost anarchy, like it is now. We've got a district attorney who has a war chest despite not having any opposition. It's dangerous, and I believe that is why I got where I was and why I got into this position, and why, until it changes, there will be other Karen Reeds. You may not hear about them. Mm-hmm. These stories, Sandra Birchmore, it's getting exposed. Other people are exposing it as well.
And David Schnipper, what do you think? Let's get your take first. I mean, is she hinting that she may want to go into something in the political arena? 25 seconds.
I mean, I think she's going to try to do anything she can to get ahead now and maybe make some money. I mean, two separate trials, right? Conspiracy theories, Lifetime movies, dirty cops. There's a lot going on here. Who wouldn't be interested in this? So, I mean, I think she's going to do whatever she can. I read that she's, financially is strapped now. So why wouldn't she do what she's trying to do to get ahead in life?
Okay, I do want to mention in that podcast, she said actually she hasn't made any money up until this point. The documentary didn't give her money when they were supposed to. There are no Son of Sam laws in Massachusetts, and she's pretty upset about it. That's why she's doing the book. Amelia, let's get your take on Karen Reed sitting down and telling it all.
I mean, I understand that she needs to make money after what's happened, but I think it's too soon for her to be doing a victory lap. She still has civil cases that she needs to deal with. While she did win in the court of public opinion and in criminal court, she still has to win these civil cases. It's kind of like the OJ trial. He lost his criminal case, but I would rather apologize. He won the criminal case, but lost the civil case. So she might be in the same position, and I think she should probably sit tight and stay low.
Molly Palmer, she really does like to talk. We saw her documentary that she now says she was not happy with the way that it turned out, but those clips were used in court.
Yeah, I mean, Karen Reed loves to give an interview. We know that about Karen Reed. Let the woman give an interview. You know, before she went to trial, it was like, don't talk before the trial. Then she went to trial twice. She was acquitted. Now it's like, don't talk after the trial. You know, let Karen Reed do Karen Reed. I also think, and I've said this about her from day one, the reason that we scrutinize Karen Reed is because she's a woman and she's not so soft. She's a little rough around the edges, and society always has a problem with that. And if it was a man doing the same thing, it'd be less of a topic of discussion.
Molly Palmer's take. All right, let's move to our third story. This one about a rap and hip-hop mogul who is behind bars right now. This is Sean Diddy Combs. He has sold his private jet 6 months after his federal conviction on those 2 prostitution-related charges. He was, of course, acquitted of sex trafficking and of RICO, but he is behind bars for another 4 years. And People magazine is reporting that the 56-year-old sold off a big asset, his aircraft, last October. It was called Love Air. It was frequently photographed boarding the boarding the custom matte black jet in the months leading up to his arrest. He went around the country, the world with it, and he reportedly sold it for $15 to $30 million. Amelia, let me get your take on Diddy selling off this major asset. What does that say about his finances right now?
Well, you know, I think he's waking up and smelling the roses. He's realizing, and reality setting in, that he's going to prison, and he probably needs some cash as well. It seems like he's facing over 50 civil trials or civil cases right now. So yeah, he might be trying to sell some assets off to get more cash to handle all of this litigation that he's dealing with. And also, he probably should have done this sooner because his bond was denied back in August, and maybe if he would have sold the jet, he could have told the judge he wasn't a flight risk. Sorry, I tripped over.
That's the time. Molly, let me get your take.
Listen, I think that he is, you know, in addition certainly to dealing with the civil lawsuits, maybe needs some money to file a writ of certiorari to the United States Supreme Court and take his appeal to the next level. And I don't know if anyone here has done that, but it's very expensive. The printing costs alone, let alone the litigation. And so this is an issue, this acquitted conduct issue, I think is actually something the U.S. Supreme Court is interested in. And I think the fight continues on the appellate level. And he is selling this so that he can afford to take it all the way.
Spoken by a fantastic federal defender here with us. David, last word on Diddy Combs.
I'm a big ChatGPT guy. I love it. It says he's now worth still about $400 million. I don't know why he would need to sell the plane. He's going to be out when he's 56. He gets out in June of 2028. He'll be 60, still relatively a young man. Who knows? Maybe he wanted to get another plane. Who knows why he sold a plane? But I don't think it has much to do. From what I read is he still has plenty of money, but all these civil trials and stuff, so who knows? Who knows how much money anybody really has?
Who knows? And probably not the last headline we'll have from Diddy. Amelia, David, and Molly, thank you so much for being on with us for Court of Opinion. That's where we have to leave it. I'm Julia Jenaé. Thank you for connecting with us. Reminding you, though, that we all have opinions, but they should be rooted in facts. And we should be trying to understand and at least see from the other side others' opinions, even when we don't agree. Exercise that muscle of compromise and debate, just like we let play out here on Court of Opinion.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.